When you get your card, divide your space into 6 areas. What we're going to be using are called watercolor color pencils. The difference between these watercolor color pencils and your regular color pencils is that when you do the work, then you can go over this with the brush and water and it'll turn into your paint. What I want you to do is make sure whenever you get started and you have your colors pencils picked out, make sure that you have color pencils that have a little golden brush on the end, and that means that it's actually a watercolor color pencil. If it doesn't have that brush, like this pencil here, then it's not gonna work out for you. So make sure that you have the little golden brush. So go to the back of the room and select which colors you need. You're gonna wanna get colors that are kind of related to each other. Like maybe you get the cools colors in one warm, or all of the warms in one cool. All right, just choose what colors you would like to have and make sure that your pencils have a little golden brush on the side. You should have your materials ready now. So let's get started with our 6 different techniques that you guys can use inside of your paintings. The first one, for the first section, we're trying to create a flat color. So with your pencils, now most of the work is going to happen on the front end, so you're going to have to make sure that you're using the tools correctly. So on our first one, we're using flat color, and what we want to do is we want to go with the colored pencil and fill the entire space with an even pressure and make sure that all of the areas look about the same in terms of value. So we don't want any areas that are too light or any areas that are too dark, because remember, we have to do the work on the front end when using watercolor colored pencils. So I'm just going to fill up this entire space with my red colored pencil. And you can use whatever color you want. Just make sure that you're filling it up evenly and that you have an even pressure to fill up the space. All right, so here is the magic. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna get our brush a little bit wet, just a little bit of water, not a lot. And we're gonna go over this entire area and make sure what we're wanting is that the color is flat, meaning that there's no areas that are darker or lighter. So we're gonna make sure that we're pushing the brush around in the same direction the entire time, and that we're moving the color around so that one area doesn't get too dark and one area isn't too light, which is why you want to make sure you don't have a whole lot of water on your brush so that you can achieve what you're wanting, which is a flat color. All right, so that's our first area. Next one, I'm going to switch to the other side because we don't want to work in 2 areas that are right next to each other while one is drying. So while the flat area is drying, I'm going to go over onto the other side. And with this one, I'm going to change colors, and I'm going to change the value of the color as I go across the area. So I'm going to start out with a relatively light pressure. And notice how I'm holding the pencil over on its edge. And then as I go across, I'm going to slowly increase the amount of pressure that I'm using on the pencil. And I don't want to have a line in between, so I'm going to go gradually across and changing the value. So now I'm about halfway through. I'm going to add more pressure on, and I'm going to start layering on more pencil so that it gets to a medium value. Over here on this far edge, I want it to be really dark in value. So I'm going to gradually increase the amount of pressure I'm putting on the pencil to get much darker in value. So with your colored pencil on an area that's not touching your flat color, go from dark to light with one colored pencil color and change the value of the color. Have my colors transitioning from light to dark in the space. Now I'm gonna make the watercolor paint. For the value change, the water has to be applied from the lightest area to the darkest area because the color is going to be carried in your brush. So starting with a clean brush on the lighter side, remember we want to go in the same direction. We're going to apply our color, and if you applied it pretty evenly, then you don't have that much work to do with the brush because you should be doing most of the work with your actual pencil. So I'm going to gradually go into the medium value, and again I'm trying to keep it really even and make sure that the value change that I'm wanting is happening before I go into the darker values. As you see, there's more paint over here that's applied to the paper, so the color is actually getting darker, and now it's more so in my brush. So if I need to work on getting it more even, I can go back over the areas which I've already been on without messing up what my intentions were. And if I need to go back to the lighter side, I'm going to clean the brush out first and make sure I don't have much water in it before I go over there and start to even these spaces out. The next area, I'm gonna go back over here next to the flat color. This is going to be blending transition in value. So with my first color, I'm gonna still go from light to dark, working on the pressure. Remember that most of the work is done with your pencil beforehand. And then as I go over here to this area, I'm gonna gradually increase the amount of pressure to change the value to darker with an orange. And you know, what if we wanted to have most of the space be orange, but we wanted a little bit of a color change on the edge, or if we wanted some color blending to happen? Doing is we're going to layer another color on top of this. So I'm going to use a color that is very similar to orange, like a red. You could use a yellow, you could use a pink. And I'm going to make this over here much darker because I'm going to add on this red, and I'm going to change it more into a red orange. So if you want the color to transition, this is how you would do this. So I'm going to apply the red on top of the orange over here on the side. And with the red, I'm going to have a darker value on the darker edge, and then I'm going to gradually change it to a lighter value in the middle of that orange space. So I'm not going to take the red all the way over to the other edge. Make sure that your colors are even. Have that done now. So this is what I'm wanting. Making sure my brush is clean. Starting on the lighter side, where I just want it to be orange. And then I'm going to gradually take it right over here to this darker space where I added the red on top. And you'll see the color really start to come in now that I'm hitting these reds. And you want that color transitioning happening so that on the very, very edge is turning more into that red. And if you want it to be even redder or even more of the other color that you transitioned into, you can go back and add more color on top later once it's dry. That's how you're going to get like a big value change there. For this one, we want to have a layering of colors, so I'm going to choose two colors that are very similar to each other or are related. I'm going to use a purple and a blue, so if you don't see a color that you're wanting from the color pencils, this is what you would do to make that color. So think about your color mixing and all that practice that we did. You're going to apply that here. So I'm going to use the purple very evenly in this space with about a medium value. And before I lay on the other color, I just want to make sure that everything is really even the way that I want. I'm gonna make like a blue violet. So I'm gonna get a blue color pencil. I'm gonna layer that blue right on top. So these colors will be a little bit richer probably than what you'll get if you just use one color. And you'll have more colors at your disposal. So here's my blue violet. Make sure my brush is clean. And remember, we want even space, even color, all the way across. So we're gonna go the same direction. To create the paint. And we're keeping it real even like what we did on the first space. So this is a color that you wouldn't have normally from the color pencils because you've created the color yourself. Next one, what I want you to do is choose a color that you maybe haven't used yet. I'm gonna use a green, and we're gonna go real evenly spaced across the entire area. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create some depth, maybe some pattern in our work. So let's say that we have like an ice cream cone or something that has a little bit of texture. This is how we would do those spaces and finish those spaces up. And with a color that is similar, I'm going to go over and make some shapes. So I'm going to keep the idea of the ice cream cone alive. All right, so I want to show you first what you do not want to do, which is what you may be tempted to do. And what you don't want to do is just take your brush and go over everything and kind of blend it all together, because you see my colors are just going wherever they want to go. That's not what we want. So that's bad. What we want to do here is we want to take each space individually, and I'm going to do all the greens first. And I'm going to make sure that I complete each square so that the colors are nice and bright and the actual intended color. And after I get all these squares done, then I'll go back and do these blue colors over it. And there's going to be a little bit of green in that blue, which is fine because that's what we wanted. You may want the colors to kind of dry in between if it's really important to you that they're not blending. And then we would have those two colors happening. And you can even go back and do a little bit of a lighter value afterwards. So there's a little bit of a shadow. Over those spaces. So you can mix the colors a little bit, but you want to be very careful about the way that you mix those colors. All right, and for the last space, I want you to kind of try some things out in this last space, see what you can experiment with, see what happens when you do different things with the color pencils, and then you're ready to start on your final piece.